Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I'm just going to give about 30 to 45 seconds or so for more folks to roll in. Do love to see the numbers jump. All right, I know we just have a bit of short time with everybody, so let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks so much for being here. I'm Anna Pham, Director of Content and Programming here at Restaurants Canada. I lead programming across our RC show, our webinars, and of course, year-round content as well, and I will be your moderator today. So before we dive in, and if this is your first webinar with us, just a couple of quick housekeeping rules. This session is being recorded and will be shared afterward along with supporting tools and resources from the speakers on this discussion. So please don't frantically feel like you need to take down a lot of notes. We will make sure that it's sent through. And if you get cut off or you're busy and you need to run off, of course, you will get a recording as well. Please drop your questions in the Q&A as we go along, and make sure to use the Q&A and not the chat box, because that is where we will be taking the questions. And last but not least, if you have any technical questions at all, just use the chat and then our team will be able to help you. We have a back-end team right now as well. So let's dive right into it. So with events like FIFA World Cup 2026 coming up, there's a real opportunity for our industry. Destination Canada recently projected over $140 billion in tourism spending in 2026. And of course, restaurants are one of the most immediate ways that spending shows up. Today is really about how to be ready for that and how to make the most of it. So with that, let's get started. I'm really glad to have this group with us here today. It is a great mix of destination and operator perspective. Joining us today, we have Sarah Jarvis from Director of Community and Engagement from Destination Toronto, Rohan Sethna, Director of Sales, Meetings, Conventions, and Events at Destination Vancouver, and Stephanie Albanese, Director of Operations at Boston Pizza. So thank you all of you for being here today. Okay, so let's kick right into it. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to pull back a little bit and just really understand the role of the city and the role of DMOs. So we're going to start off with Destination Toronto and Destination Vancouver here. Representing both of your host cities, I'm sure it's a really busy time right now for both of your teams. Can you first please share what the role of a DMO is and how does that translate into real, tangible resources and support for restaurants and local businesses? And we can definitely kick off with you, Sarah.
Sure. Thanks so much. Really glad to be here. Wish I could see everybody, but I feel you. I feel your energy, and I know how busy everyone is. So thanks for taking the time today. So Toronto's visitor economy is a vital economic engine for the city. We had last year a record 28.2 million visitors who generated over $9 billion in visitor spending in 2025. And our purpose is to ignite the city's visitor economy and promote the city to attract visitors and major meetings and events and support those local businesses. And it goes, Destination Marketing Organization, or a DMO as we're called, we go well beyond just marketing, really. It's about driving that demand to the city, shaping how visitors experience it, and making sure that that demand translates into real benefit for local businesses. We're a membership-based organization, and as of last year, we actually made membership free for Toronto businesses to ensure that we're representing the full breadth of the destination, including many more restaurants and local operators. So from a practical standpoint, that means helping more visitors discover you and your business, whether they're planning the trip ahead of time or deciding in the moment where they're going to go. So we want to make it easier for businesses to plug in to what's going on from the visitor perspective. And we're always actively building content and working with media so that We find those opportunities for businesses to plug into those channels and amplify across all of our networks so that visitors can discover you when they arrive or in advance of their planning. So it's not just about bringing people in, it's actually helping connect them to things to do across the destination.
Thank you, Sarah. I know you got kind of the umbrella of what DMOs are. Rohan, did you want to add some remarks to that as well?
Yes, absolutely. And I think Sarah covered it pretty well there. And the shift from that DMO to, I think historically being a destination marketing organization to now I think we've all evolved into one that we refer to as a destination management organization. So it goes beyond just promoting our destination to leisure travelers. As with my role and others at other DMOs, we have a pretty robust team that focuses on securing major business events, but also sporting events, cultural events for our destination that have a positive impact on our visitor economy, which then trickles out into the wider economy within our respective cities. So that's restaurants, shops, hotels, attractions, et cetera, et cetera. And we as well at Destination Vancouver, we're a membership-based organization, but we're certainly involved in promoting all parts of the city. We have a media team focused on media and promotions that is very engaged and active during major events, and especially one like the FIFA World Cup. And then although we are not technically, we in Vancouver, we are our own not-for-profit association. So even though we are technically not City of Vancouver, we work very closely with our partners over at the city who are the main body behind executing all aspects, especially with something like a FIFA World Cup that sit outside of our stadium. So really, I think for restaurants and attractions and shops, I think the biggest sort of shared objective that we're possibly all trying to combat is the effects of seasonality. And we know in our destinations, summer being a busier time, it's how do we really look at events and major events, of course, not something like FIFA, but other major events driving our visitor economy all times through the calendar year.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And maybe we'll stay with you here. When you were kind of talking about driving the visitor economy, I think people also want to understand a bit of the visitor flow as well. So when you think about how visitors move through a city during something as big and as large as FIFA, and I know with your host city, you also had the opportunity with the Olympics as well. How much of that is designed versus organic, and where are you most actively trying to influence behavior of the visitors?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think flow, like we as a destination and as an organization working in tandem with the rest of our community partners and stakeholders, whether that be local BIAs, the City of Vancouver, hotels, et cetera, et cetera. For us, a lot of that flow, we're trying to influence what that is. Of course, it's going to be quite prescriptive with, let's just use the example of the FIFA World Cup on a match day. We sort of have a sense of what that flow could be. It's also, I think, by design that we have our fan festival that is about 15 minutes from our downtown core over at the P&E with the build of a brand new amphitheater there. So that's going to be where crowds are mostly gathering on match days, as well as, of course, the Fan Fest on non-match days. But for us as a DMO, we're certainly trying to get visitors to experience all Vancouver has to offer. So trying to create that natural dispersion into some of our other neighborhoods, which are extremely accessible, whether on foot or Uber or even public transit. So that's a little bit more of our focus for Destination Vancouver. But I think outside of just Vancouver, our Metro Vancouver areas and our suburban sort of DMOs are naturally going to benefit from having a large scale event like this in the city. They're going to see the traffic in their regions, in their restaurants, and their attractions. So I think some of that's going to naturally happen, and some of that we're actively trying to influence.
Amazing. And Sarah, do you feel the same about Toronto? Are you trying to spread visitors across the city, or does the activity tend to cluster in a few key areas?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, just back to the point about, the design versus organic. I think, there's obviously a design layer when you're moving that many people and people are congregating. You have to be strategic about flow, particularly in a city like Toronto, where you're dealing with those traffic constraints and transit and what have you. So much of it is by design. And we've got, the GO train, TTC, Union Station is preparing. That last mile is going to become so critical in managing that flow. And it's not a flow from point A to point B. There are multiple entry points to the stadium footprint. So we're going to see that, come in from a number of different areas. So all of that design will help move those people. There will be road closures. TTC and GO trains are going to increase their frequency, but I think that you're going to see a lot of people opting for walking and cycling, and also lingering afterwards to help that flow dissipate. So great opportunity for those businesses around that stadium footprint to capitalize on those folks that want to arrive earlier and stay longer afterwards. But not everyone is moving towards the stadium. In Toronto, there's going to be hundreds of events thematically connected to this opportunity taking place across the city. So with FIFA, you've got such a broader audience. Yes, you have ticket holders and you have fans that are going to come to FanFest, but there's going to be people that are just attracted to energy across the city. And Toronto already operates like that. We have big events always along the waterfront, and during the FIFA window, we're going to have concerts and Blue Jays games, trade shows and festivals all happening at the same time, especially certainly concentrated downtown along the waterfront. But because this is an opportunity to celebrate citywide and you've got those events happening everywhere, we're really going to be focused on trying to get people to go out and explore. Folks are coming in for a game, yes, but they're likely going to stay longer. And so we're making sure that we're providing all of those opportunities to visit those attractions, explore the neighborhoods, and look at, of course, all of the places to eat and spend time while they're here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, as a fellow Torontonian, I was listening very attentively because I want to know where my bike path is going and which roads are closing. So being mindful of that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll just add, I mean, we know the folks are coming. That's going to be certainly a factor. But FIFA's never had an event like this before. There's never been this dispersion across 16 cities and 3 countries. So it's difficult to anticipate what the fan arrival is going to be like outside of ticket holders, because folks typically gravitate and want to support their countries where they're playing. So that's a bit of a wait and see. But we're tracking really, really well with ticket sales, certainly in advance of the games. And I think the biggest opportunity is for how Toronto is going to show up. We know that folks have certainly an aversion to traffic. It's an ongoing point of conversation. It is improving, happy to say, but we're making sure that we're inviting Toronto to celebrate. Typically, FIFA is a great time to be in the city anyway, because all of those countries are celebrated and represented here, but really inviting the city to step in and welcome FIFA fans and be a part of the celebration, not just around the stadium, but certainly across the city. Because as I said, there's going to be a huge lift in activities and events and viewing parties and celebrations. So it's not just about that footprint, it's really celebrations everywhere.
Amazing. Thanks, Sarah. All right, so we're going to move into a bit of the operational side. We have here Stephanie from Boston Pizza, where I'm sure has purview across the entire brand. I did a little bit of digging. I know, we all know Boston Pizza isn't just one location. Please keep me honest. It's a network of 370 franchisees.
72, yes.
72. Okay, we'll add the 2 across Canada. So that covers, key areas and also rural areas as well.
Yeah.
So when a massive event like this rolls around, how do you make sure the whole system is ready? Because I know we're talking about Toronto, we're talking about Vancouver, and also how can everyone benefit as well?
Yeah, thanks, Anna. I think, what we say at Boston Pizza is this is what we do and what our brand is built on. For 60 years, we have really been the place that holds and hosts groups and occasions, just like sporting events like FIFA, but also anything else that happens in, day-to-day restaurants. So whether it's the bus that's pulling off the highway that needs a place to eat, this is what our operators do on a daily basis. So they are ready to go. One of the things about getting a whole system ready and the benefits to being in a larger brand like Boston Pizza is really, the tools and resources that come with that. And so for us, we always say systems are really the key to success. So whether that's, utilizing your food ordering powers or your line checks or our scheduling systems, we really rely on those systems to be in place to make sure that every restaurant coast to coast is ready to go for these events. And then your last question around like everyone able to benefit. I do think that this is around awareness of your market. And we know that, like Rohan and Sarah have said, Vancouver and Toronto are going to be the places to be, but it doesn't mean that your restaurant in Timmins or in Saskatchewan can't also be the place to be. So thinking about looking at it like there's soccer fans everywhere across Canada. We have so many diverse nationalities here that it's really just going to take some digging into your community and find out what your market wants and be able to own that FIFA event in your own community, even if it's not in Toronto or in Vancouver.
That's great to hear, especially for the restaurants outside of the city as well. And, when you look at the mix of sales, does it change a little bit when there's a bigger event that comes around?
I think so. And I think that, obviously also depending on what time of day it is. And so, when I think about some of the Toronto times, we're around lunchtime, and in Vancouver, some of those games are going to be in the morning. Definitely sales mix. We're not going to get as much alcohol sales, I find, in those times, whereas we would to some of the afternoon and evening games. I also find you get a little mix in the demographic and things like that. So you'll see a lot of families that are coming out to these events as well. And I think the other sales mix switch that we see is, you have people that are sitting and kind of enjoying a little bit longer. You're not getting that normal, table turn time that you would in a typical restaurant. So, people are looking to kind of spread out their dining experience. And so, if we're out dining together, we might get a little bit more of the appetizers and those shareable items versus some of the individual meals. And we find that can also see an increase in your average guest check sales as well.
That's great. That's great. Thank you. And then kind of staying with you, Stephanie, seeing that Boston Pizza has been around for 60 years, you probably have a bit of experience around, a planned event like this versus unplanned demand like, the Jays playoff. So how different is your prep for that, and how do you plan around it?
Yeah, I think, like we said before, we're really built for events and going back on that and making sure that we are always ready. But, it's always great when you have some awareness of something coming up, you have a schedule, you have things that are timed. We can look at things like, do I have enough staff to be able to, execute in June? If not, let's start to activate that now so that we can get them trained and ready to go. Wanting to make sure that you're connecting with your partners, making sure your ordering levels are good where they need to go. So having a planned event is a luxury where you can get a little bit more time and set up for success. But also knowing the unplanned events, sometimes you just have to make sure that you have that team in place that can always be called in and be able to lean on when you need to.
Amazing. And from the city side, maybe, I can ask this to you, Rohan. Same ways, how do you approach structured events like FIFA versus something that happens and builds organically?
Yeah, I think with a structured event like this, we just have a lot more information ahead of time, and whether this falls into sort of the readiness around things like the World Cup, for example, in Vancouver, we know that we have a whole slew of time slots for our match start times. So I'm just looking at it on my other screen here. We've got a 9 p.m. kickoff, a 3 p.m., a 6 p.m., a 12 noon, and two 8 p.m.s and a 1 p.m. Some on weekdays, some on weekends. So that is a little bit all over the place. So I think with knowing those kickoff times ahead of time, it's my advice for certainly members joining this call would be, how do you plan ahead for those kickoff times? Also knowing that the stadium is likely going to start their final mile and start opening gates almost 3 hours before the match actually kicks off. And then for those last two matches, because they're going to be a knockout phase, you could have a match that extends by an additional hour over what's normally a 2-hour match. So how do you plan for those things ahead of time, whether it comes down to staffing, what your offering is on that day? And I think that's where, certainly with some of these major planned events, a lot of our members, and not just restaurants, but even our wider members, have the opportunity to plan ahead of time for what's happening on those days. And then you also, aside from actual match days where we're hosting games, we know we're going to have an active fan fest that is showing matches from all the way from 10 a.m. and other matches through the day, finally with concerts at the end of the night. But there's going to be breaks between those days. So literally, I think having to get as granular into going into those schedules within your respective city to look at what that means for you as a restaurant planning.
And for you, Sarah, we also have the Jays. So how does that look like for Toronto? Oh, you're on mute.
Thank you. I think, the biggest difference, obviously, between planned and unplanned is time. With something like FIFA, we've had the ability to prepare, as mentioned. So we've got some time to align across our partners. We're sharing information. We're helping those businesses plan ahead. We've been inviting media to come into the destination well in advance to see the stadium, walk through FanFest, and hear firsthand what the plans are, so that we can prepare those stories and have those positioned as folks are making their way to the destination for the games. So, with something more organic like the Jays in a playoff run, as an example, it's much more reactive. So from a scheduling perspective, during the regular season, obviously those are all well planned and you can build around that. But I'll just reiterate, we've been trying to host industry briefings. We've got another one scheduled on May 28th for anybody to participate, so businesses can really understand how they can get involved, what are those touch points that they can engage with, and then guidance on the viewing licenses versus how to navigate branding and the FIFA IP, which is very restrictive. So what are those clear do's and don'ts so that businesses can prepare? We saw in the Jays playoffs, everybody was reactive and folks were getting into a little bit of trouble with IP restrictions. So we want to make sure that everyone's well aware leading up to this what they can do, so that they can take full advantage of the opportunity, because they certainly can. So we're more intentional coming into this. We're really trying to gather as much information as we can about what businesses are planning, the events that are going on, so that we can build those into structured itineraries, highlighting all those neighborhoods and really push out that dispersion across the city. We also have a tool called Six, which is an AI travel assist. And so we're teaching it how to respond for FIFA specifically, but that's an always on strategy. So when you do have those unplanned moments, that you can actually lean into that AI tool and help inform visitors on what they need to know around that.
And I'm sure you've spoken about a lot of resources here, as with Destination Vancouver as well. We can probably collectively gather all of that and include links and supporting resources into the recording email that's sent out afterwards for all of the registrations. We were just talking about moments right now too, and I know you had both spoken about the in-between moments. And I think we talked about it on a high level, but can folks find like a robust calendar on your specific websites? And again, like what role does restaurants realistically play within that part of the experience? And maybe we'll stay with you, Sarah, and then Rohan, you can take over after.
Yeah, absolutely. We've touched on this a little bit already, but the audience is much bigger than what's happening inside the stadium. So people are going to be looking for things to do in between matches. And as we say, those sort of curious travelers are going to be here just to be part of the energy as well, and they're going to be looking for things to do. So it's about capturing those audiences wherever you can. So we have a dedicated microsite at Destination Toronto, highlighting all of the things that are going on during the FIFA window, and a very robust event calendar. As you said, there's a category specifically. This is Toronto 26. So if anything is happening from an event perspective that relates to FIFA, it doesn't have to be specifically about FIFA or branded FIFA. It's really just about the energy. Throw a soccer ball in an event and it works. So we're really trying to encourage folks to really lean in and experience the destination in those in between moments. And certainly from a restaurant perspective, I mean, you've got those people. I don't know. I'm that person when I'm planning a trip. The first thing I do is book my reservations for dinner and lunches. But you've got a lot of people who don't travel that way that are looking for those ideas and suggestions of where to go and gather, and they're going to go where the energy is oftentimes, right? So if something looks interesting, they're going to step out of the road and into your business. So it's really about making sure that folks see the opportunities wherever it is that those suggestions are being made, and also being a welcoming environment for them to be curious and to step in.
Amazing.
Yeah, not too dissimilar here in Vancouver. We have again our version of a World Cup. We have a regular calendar of events, and then we have a World Cup calendar of events where we're getting, whether it's members, non-members, anyone can submit to get their event on that calendar, so that anyone going to that calendar has an idea of everything going on during the city during that time frame. This was actually something that we piloted during another major event. We had event calendar during the last 3 shows of the Eras Tour for Taylor Swift, and found that it worked really well for that. So again, seeing what we've done in the past and building off that. And then similar to what Destination Toronto is doing in Vancouver, we have our own set of resources. We've called it the Home Turf Toolkit. That is basically a suite of digital assets that our marketing team has created that any business, member, restaurant can go in and take advantage of. So it's got logos and colors and fonts, again, somewhat complementary and aligned to what our host city branding looks like, but at the same time, not infringing on any of the very restrictive IP that the FIFA World Cup has around logo usage. So really, I would encourage any businesses or restaurants to really take advantage of those resources so that you can be seen as a business that is sort of celebrating the moment. And I think where both our cities shine and where Canada shines as a whole is us as residents also sort of taking advantage of that moment and making sure that not only visitors feel welcome, but also resident sentiment is at an all-time high, and that we're ready and we enjoy welcoming the world.
Amazing. And then from an operator standpoint, do you find that there is actually a bigger window of opportunity for the in-between moments?
I think, yeah, especially if you are in those, core host cities of Vancouver and Toronto, you're going to have a lot of first-time people that are in your area. And, that dining experience isn't really just about going to get a meal. It's about adding on to that trip and everything that they're doing. So really getting to understand that guest need, are they going to a game and need to be in and out, or are they experiencing the city? Can we offer them, our tips about where the best place to visit? And then I think on the flip side of that is, if you're not in those core host cities, is really taking advantage of those kind of in between games to kind of reset yourself. Making sure that your teams have breaks, that you get everything nice and tidied up, stopping and debriefing to see if do we need more staff on for the next Canada game because we didn't have enough. And I think that sometimes we just go from day to day and we stop to kind of pause a little bit and look at while we do have a breather, what can we do better for the next time?
I love that you highlighted that. That is a sustainable and strategic way of running a business. And it's important to regroup and, like you mentioned, to make sure that your team has a break. It can be, these are busy services. And sometimes some of the best services are the one where the team feels prepared and they feel equipped and they had a breather. So I'm really glad that you noted that. And in talking about breathers, I wanted to kind of just touch a bit on, the pressure as well, Sarah. I know we had kind of talked about traffic. I'm not going to make a joke about traffic either. But where do we anticipate the most pressure that we'll be building? Is it specific to different neighborhoods? Is it a service capacity across all of, the different venues and restaurants and food service? Is it transit? We can start with you, Sarah.
Yeah, I think, obviously traffic is an ongoing concern, especially if there's going to be road closures on game days, several hours prior, during, and after the game. But Toronto is a very accessible city, and we are used to operating at this scale. As we already said, we regularly have concerts, Jays games, trade shows, festivals all along that corridor. So the volume of bodies is no different than really any normal summer day. It's just where these folks are coming from. They're coming from elsewhere. They're not necessarily locals. So there are going to be those busy moments, not new for the city. Really messaging and encouraging folks to linger and spend time in the neighborhoods, and so that's good for those businesses. So messaging really just ensure that folks are considering transit and bikes as much as possible, and just adjust schedules. And this is such an incredible opportunity for both of our destinations and for Canada as a whole. So let's lean in and celebrate it, because it's going to be a long time before we see a FIFA again. So, but I think as far as pressure points elsewhere, or really, I guess sort of a reverse pressure point. And I'll just note that we've, and Rohan, you can speak to this as well. During the FIFA window, we've seen our group bookings leave that window of time in our destination. So we've seen a drop in those group bookings, but happy to say that they have booked elsewhere throughout the calendar. So it's just shifted really. So those numbers haven't changed from an annual basis. They've just moved out of that space. So there has been chatter around the pressure around that, but noting that they are just simply moving elsewhere. And we're seeing that transient business pick up and lift and increase over that window of time. So we're positive about that, which is really great. But yeah, I mean, the biggest talking point, of course, is going to be traffic, because Toronto just loves to talk about it. But our hope is that, we see this. It's 6 games. It's the same as Taylor Swift, and a lot of what we've seen, the taking out of the playbook from Taylor, and we learned a lot from that. And I know Vancouver did as well. So, the microsite, the calendar, really encouraging thematic connections, because these fans want to see that and engage with that. So it's really just lean in and celebrate. And there's actually a lot of fun found in traffic when everyone's waving their flags and honking their horns after a game. So yeah, I say yay traffic. Let's make it a positive.
I also love the lessons behind millions of Swifties.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and I can certainly echo similar comments on our side, where we have seen a little bit of displacement, certainly around the window that the World Cup is going to be hosted in Vancouver, where we're not seeing business events take place during that window. So yes, on one side there is the pressure of hosting the biggest event in the world, but like Sarah's mentioned, for us in our destination, we've had times where we've hosted 2 shows of Coldplay at BC Place, and right next door at Rogers Arena, we've had we've had it was Coldplay and the Laver Cup of tennis. So we're used to having large crowds come in, and I think part of what the city and the host city team at the city of Vancouver, I think working with FIFA, part of that intention to alleviate any pressure points is to ensure that there's a long enough window where gates are opening 3 hours before actual kickoff time, so it gives people plenty of time where I would say typically for most of our sporting events, it's an hour to an hour before. So we're not going to hopefully see that same sort of rush within that hour before. But of course, for us in Vancouver, everyone is being funneled in through one entry point for our last mile. So it's making sure that everyone is aware of all the information being put out, whether it's through the right sources, so at the city of Vancouver in terms of road closures, timings, transit times, and we know our transit agency with TransLink is working to help support that capacity as well.
Great. Steph, we're going to go back to you a little bit here, and I'm going to speed it up only because I want to leave some time for our VPs and for Q&A as well. I want to talk a little bit of the location strategy. As we know, Boston, we've all been to a Boston Pizza. We know that it can accommodate quite a lot of people. But with that, we understand that you folks have switched to a different approach. So Boston Pizza, if nobody else has read this, Boston Pizza has now been strategically expanding into airports, hotels, and a stadium adjacent locations where there is less footprint, but where demand is already concentrated. So has that changed how you think about where the real opportunity sits during events like this?
So interesting question. I will focus kind of more my answer on kind of the operational portion versus the real estate stuff. But yeah, across the country, lots of different places, airports, stadiums, and hotels. And I think from a major event is that no matter where people are, they still want to see sports and they still want to be able to see that. So, if I'm on a work trip and happen to be at the airport, in Edmonton, I'm really happy that I can stop in, have a drink, and still be able to watch the game. So I think that, while restaurants that are closest to the stadiums often see, higher volume of intake during those events, they really have to make sure that they are, taking a look at everything that's happening in the community. And I know that Sarah kind of mentioned all the different stuff that happens, not just FIFA, but thinking about taking a look at all of that to see where their opportunities are for guest service.
Great. And then, kind of just wrapping it up a little bit here, and before we bring on the VPs, Sarah, maybe we'll start with you. And maybe, Steph, if you want to chime in here as well with any of learnings from your own services across all of the locations. What's one thing about how visitors behave during major events that you think businesses and operators consistently underestimate?
Well, I think operators are pretty well in tuned, I think, with these large opportunities. But I guess if I was to find something, I would suggest maybe how fluid it is. Visitors don't have everything planned out. They're often deciding what to do next. They don't know how long a game is going to go. So they leave a lot of things open. So during something like FIFA, that's really amplified, right? And people are moving between these moments. They're looking for what's happening and where that energy is. So being visible, being easy to access, and being part of that overall experience and leaning into these channels with your DMO, I think is really, really important. Those forms are there for folks to tell us what they're doing, what their plans are, so that we can then communicate that out to the visitors to make sure that information is readily available. Having those small signals and what people see in those moments is really going to drive those decisions to determine whether somebody walks in or walks past. So.
Great. And would that be the same sentiment for Vancouver as well?
Yeah, As I'm thinking about other major events we've hosted, and one or two of the comments that we've heard back and some feedback, I think sometimes operators and restaurants, and I'm talking about ones that specifically aren't in that sort of entertainment district downtown core where the stadiums and arenas are, but perhaps the ones a little further out, I think sometimes underestimate how much visitors are willing to travel to go eat and to go seek out and find that hidden gem. And I think certainly in Vancouver and Toronto and other parts of Canada, we've got we've got an excellent sort of culinary acclaim that we're known for. And people are willing to do that research and are willing to go find those restaurants, even though they may be further out. So I would say, even if you are a restaurant or a business that is further out, I would still go ahead and plan to see how you can get involved and how you can make sure your business is showing up during this time and maximizing those opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And I think I would just add, I mean, we've never obviously hosted FIFA, but I think, in speaking with Montreal and what happens during Formula One there, and that surge of visitors that come in, it's a different visitor. It's a different kind of customer. So I think, patience on all fronts is likely important. It's going to be interesting to see how these fans show up, but it's just, I think it's going to be very different than our typical visitors, but a great opportunity to show off Toronto and plant that seed for a future visit. So
yeah. And Steph, any lessons from the front line?
Yeah, I think for operators, what I would say is don't be afraid to kind of create your own environment and be the place that people want to be. And often, I hear, I'm not in Toronto or I don't have a soccer fan. Well, you just have to go out and create that. You still have time. So just let your community know that you are the place that's going to come and host FIFA events. And I think that that's a great opportunity for your business.
Thanks, Steph. We're going to end it on one question, which we'll leave with Sarah and Rohan, and then we'll be able to introduce Chris and Cheryl onto here. So, beyond the event itself, what is the lasting infrastructure, whether it be relationships or even data or habits that you're hoping FIFA will leave behind for the respected host cities? Sarah, you can start.
Sure. I think, the immediate impact is clear with visitors and activity and that economic boost. And I think the legacy is more businesses and more stakeholders sort of seeing themselves part of the visitor economy and stepping into that. And also, for us, this is a global moment for Toronto and Vancouver in Canada. Toronto will be broadcasting to billions of fans worldwide through those rights holding broadcasters. So we can lean in on that official tournament B-roll of the city and introduce other content. And really showcase Toronto to a global audience in a really compelling way. That's a very expensive proposition to be able to have that many focused eyes on our cities. So we really want to take advantage of this opportunity, and that becomes the legacy. So it's not just about the visitors that are here during the matches. It's about that exposure and awareness that will drive future travel destinations and position Toronto for consideration. And showing what Toronto feels like as a city, right? The not just the matches, the neighborhoods, the food, absolutely. It's a critical part of our storytelling, top to bottom, year round. And the way people will come together and celebrate this moment. So that's the legacy we want to capture now and share with the world, so that more of the world can come and participate in that in the future.
Yeah, and then by then, I'm hoping people would have moved on from Drake's ice sculpture in the city as our current Toronto monumental.
Moment.
Yeah.
There'll be another version soon. So.
Any final remarks from you, Rohan?
Yeah, it's quite timely that we're having this conversation this week. It was 3 days ago that Vancouver celebrated its 40-year anniversary after hosting Expo 86. And I think anyone that was in Vancouver during that time sees and even till today feels the legacy that event left. So my only sort of parting message would be no matter how small or big your business is, I think we all have a role to play in showcasing how our cities and our businesses by extension show up at this event. Uh, and I, for one, am very envious that when I hear people talking about the Vancouver Olympics in 2010, I seem to have missed that moment in time. I moved to Canada a couple of years right after, but the way people talk about that moment, I think it's a lot of small businesses and a lot of work that gets put around the table by multiple stakeholders across different sectors and industries that all come together. So I think seeing what it leaves us in terms of relationships for what we can do in the future, I think is very strong and powerful.
Yeah, I love
Expo 86 forever. I was there during those years. It was a really special time.
I love the focus on legacy and the stamp on pride as well. With that, we have on here right now our regional VPs. We're going to kick it off first with Cheryl, who represents out west, with a few remarks, and then we'll have Chris as well take over.
Great. And yes, thanks everyone. It's great to be here for this conversation. And I also remember Expo 86 and the Olympics, that there's been some great events out here on the West Coast, and looking forward to this next one coming up. So just a few kind of sort of compliance things I thought it might be helpful to remind members, particularly those here based in Vancouver and Western Canada. We've talked about road closures a bit in this conversation. There is a webinar being hosted by the FIFA Vancouver Host Committee this coming Thursday. I'll make sure Anna has the link available, and I don't think I can put it in the chat, which is fine, but we'll make sure that everybody gets the link to that information about road closures, because it will impact your businesses and how your employees can also get to your locations if necessary. Also, the liquor licensing, for anyone that's looking to have maybe extended hours are not quite as significant in this situation, but certainly any extended patio space or just any changes to your liquor licensing. The LCRB, they are still accepting applications for changes, but they are getting to a place that it does say on their website March 31st was the deadline, but they are still accepting applications, but it's getting tight for them to be able to be processed as well with your local governments. And that's for all across BC, not just, in Vancouver area. So make sure that you're on top of whatever licensing issues that you have. If you're in Alberta, they are not anticipating a lot of requests, again, given the timing of the games, but the process is a little less onerous, but you do need to get on it. Saskatchewan can be quite a lengthy process as well, so make sure you're getting those types of requests in for any changes to your liquor license for the duration of the games. And I'll just say here in Vancouver and British Columbia, they're treating this as one whole event for the month around FIFA. So it's not that you have to have multiple applications for different days. You can get something arranged for the whole month, but you do need to get on that quickly. And then I've had some conversations with the liquor folks just around the compliance issues that they watch for. So obviously there's your typical issues, but particularly when there's big, large events like this, they're very mindful of issues around over service, underage service, poor behavior and capacity issues. So just make sure that you and your team are on those issues so that everyone can continue to have fun and don't have to have too many visits from our inspectors. So those are just some reminders there just around some licensing issues going into next month. But I think it's going to be an exciting time, and look forward to being part of it.
Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl. And Chris?
Thanks, and thanks for everyone for being part of this. From West Canada perspective, there's a few things that we always want to try to do with big events like this. And first, this is when we get the media calls, we want to promote the event. We want to encourage people to come visit restaurants. We want to encourage them to plan ahead so they're not descending into your restaurant saying, "Hey, I got to be to the game in 30 minutes from now," and to make sure that they understand that your team is doing the best job they possibly can to provide a good customer service, and whether they want to stay for the event or go go to the event after, to make sure that they're planning ahead accordingly and that they're treating everyone with respect. What we also try to do is make sure that you have the information that you need about the big events themselves. So I want to say thank you to Sarah and her team for information that they've shared with us. If you saw the most recent CEO note, there was some content that Sarah's team shared with us about when the actual matches are, about some of the rules and regulations around showing the events, making sure that you're compliant with intellectual property rules and whatnot, and also opportunities to share some of the things that you're doing with the destination marketing organizations. And what I'll also say is when we get into the event, if you're finding that you're having specific problems in around your neighborhood or wherever you are, and things that maybe government might be able to help with, policing, whatever it might be, please give us a call and let us know. And if there are things that we can do to help, we'll do our best. And as you have questions along the way, certainly reach out to the destination marketing organizations or reach out to us. And if we don't have the answer, we'll do our best to get it for you as quickly as we can.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chris. And with that, we will move into Q&A. And I was poking around and looking at the questions here. So the first question we have is around waste management. And I don't know if both of you have answers to that, but for the cities, is there a plan for additional litter within the higher traffic areas of the city? I know that maybe that is probably more towards the municipalities, but if you have any remarks on that, that would be great.
I'll jump in on that. Yeah, certainly it's a question for city services directly, but I do know that they're having conversations around adjusting collection schedules to correlate with game times, being mindful of that. And I know that recently the City of Toronto launched a Keep Toronto Beautiful campaign with a series of cleaning blitzes running from May to October. So I think there's a number of targeted days where city staff are coming out and addressing a litter sort of general cleanliness and upkeep across the city over the course of leading into FIFA and then throughout the summer. So slightly separate. It's not direct litter collection after each game, but more on that to come. And as we said, there'll be another briefing on the 28th, and I'll carry that question forward and make sure that we address that in that briefing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Sarah. Anything from Vancouver?
Yeah, again, on our side, that's being planned by the City of Vancouver and our municipality. I do believe they have that covered within their plans, and I can tell you even from this past weekend when we hosted the BMO Vancouver Marathon, the next day it was all pretty spotless. So yeah, they're used to doing that, know it's coming, and again, this gets into being able to plan for these types of structured events well in advance. So it's definitely something that will fall on the responsibility of our municipality at City of Vancouver.
Great, thank you. Any other questions do we have from our participants? Just give you folks 10 seconds here. We did get another one. I'd like to host watch parties at my restaurant. Where can I find info for guidelines?
Sorry, Rohan, go ahead.
Okay, for Vancouver, on our website, you will find a link to our home turf toolkit that has all the information online on what you need to do, what type of watch party you can host, and then what the rules are, whether it's free, whether it's part of your existing programming, or whether you're looking to host a licensed watch party. So I would definitely go on to our website and all the information will be online. It's destinationvancouver.com.
And similar. I mean, the rules are the same regardless of Vancouver or Toronto. So the City of Toronto's toolkit, community engagement toolkit, has those regulations and advice outlined there. And typically, if you normally show sporting events within your normal operating plan, then certainly keep on keeping on. But yeah, there are other restrictions and rules around ticketing and promotions. So it's really important to be aware of what those recommendations are.
Great, thank you. And like I'd mentioned before, and I think this will answer our last question as well, is there will be a recording available, and in this recording email, which will follow this live discussion, will include all of the links and resources we had just spoken about. Like I mentioned before, don't feel like you frantically need to go look for it or to skim through the recording to see where it is. We'll make sure that it is linked out into that as well. So with that, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Stephanie, Sarah, Rohan, Chris, Cheryl, for sharing your expertise. Hopefully folks got a little bit of information today to take away, and hopefully the follow-up email with all of the toolkits and resources and the calendars will set up people for a successful World Cup. And again, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to contact us. We are readily available. And as always, with our webinar program, we do have a webinar every single month. So if you found that this was informative, please stay tuned to all of our channels and you'll see what will be coming down the pipeline. So with that, thank you. Enjoy the rest of your day and hope to see all you folks soon.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.